really no good when Cooper's hawks fly in. There was a crap ton of birds just a minute ago, and then a Cooper's hawk flew in right over there. And now, silence. So I guess that's a good time to start the video. What's up, guys? Welcome to another wildlife episode. Today's video is going to be more domestic, I guess you could say, because it's all about how to get better photos, better bird photos in your backyard. So I'm here visiting my dad, who lives in the Atlanta area, Atlanta, Georgia, and he has what I consider a pretty amazing backyard, especially compared to all the backyards I've ever had. This is way nicer. And my dad's definitely a bird hobbyist. He doesn't like to photograph them, but he just likes to have them around. And I thought that'd be a perfect opportunity because I come out here every morning and before everybody wakes up, and I just sit here for hours on end and I stare at birds and I try to shoot them in the face. And I came up with a few tips that I think will help you with your birding and your bird photography and your photography in general. And to me, the beauty of backyard birding is really that this gives you the best chance to study and practice, because this is where you're most likely going to be most of the time. Like I said, I sit out here every single morning when the weather's nice, which we're in Atlanta, Georgia, so it's pretty much always nice. And I have the perfect opportunity every single day. And if you guys have seen any of my other wildlife videos, you know that I'm always mentioning that practice and routine are the best ways to get solid wildlife shots. And that's certainly true here. So let's talk about some of those things. So some of them are not going to be specifically photography related. And again, I've mentioned this before in my wildlife tutorials, and this isn't going to be specifically all on photography exactly. It's not going to be detailed settings and all of that stuff. I have other videos for that. If you want to check those out, you definitely should, because they'll help you up your wildlife photography in general. But something that I'm a big proponent of is studying the animals and studying the animals' habitat, their behavior, and all of that stuff. And those are going to be some of the tips I'm going to focus on here, because that's the power that you have in the backyard. This is a semi-controlled environment, so that means it's semi-controllable on my part. I can also control where I sit and where I plant things and all of that stuff. So the first tip is definitely to know your birds. Know what you have in the area, know what's local to you, and then beyond that, know how to attract them. So what my dad does and what I do when I have my own yard is we go to the local store, the local feed store, or the local nursery or whatever, and we talk to them and we find out what kind of feeders the bird likes. So make sure if you're going to put feeders up, make sure you have the right type of feeders with the right types of food for the birds that are here. And then also make sure that you, if you're going to be landscaping your yard, you have the ability to put in native plants. That's really important, to put in native trees and plants, because that brings in native bugs. And again, understanding your birds is the primary diet for a lot of these birds out here is bugs and insects of all kinds, and that's what the trees and the native plants bring. They bring those native bugs, and then you're more likely to have birds stop here. So like right now it's migration period, and you can tell back there. So we've got all these giant pine trees. We've got this big, beautiful tree right here. We've got some deciduous trees, all of which are pretty native to this area. And that really does a great job at attracting the birds and keeping them interested and fed just natively without me having to do anything. Also, these tips are not really in order. They're just how I'm thinking of them as I think of the kind of things that I look for when I'm doing my backyard birding. So just keep that in mind. So the next tip is definitely water. So birds, like any other living creature, really enjoy water. So if you have at least one or a few places to get water, like bird baths, they really enjoy that. But I've also found that they also just like puddles. Like, it's really easy, I think, if you had a rain or something and you have an area that has a natural puddle, keep an eye on that. Or if you just want to make a puddle with your hose or something, because I have this right here, which I have this bird bath here, but then right next to it down below, like when it rains or whatever, there's like a little natural puddle right there on the edge of the grass. And I find that the birds really like that. And like they tend, when that puddle is there, they tend to hang out down there even more than they do on the actual bird bath that I've put out for them. All right, so let's talk about some actual photography stuff now. So I think the most important thing when you're doing wildlife photography is to be as non-invasive as possible and be as discreet as possible. So what I like to do, especially when I'm here, is I have a couple of places where I can sit where my dad has placed feeders that are not too close but not too far, and that where like we have this railing here and it's nice to be able to hide behind the railings. So I'm really trying to be conscious of not being too invasive and kind of hiding as much as possible. So you know, of course they can see me, and I'm definitely not wearing birding attire right now. They stick out like a big giant blue thumb. But being able to like hide behind this bush and hide behind the railing and being able to sit over there and kind of hide behind that bush and have my line of sight to the cherry tree and the bird bath over there is really helpful. So another thing when you're considering like your landscaping, your placement of your feeders and all of that stuff, if you're into photography and you're doing this for photography, then that's definitely something you should take into consideration is your compositions. Try to place your feeders where you know the light might be good in the mornings if that's when you're going to be sitting out, or in the afternoons, and pay attention to that kind of stuff. If you're really going to try to up your photography, that kind of stuff, thinking about that composition in advance will really help your photography. So here's the thing on that subject. Here's the thing about me with birding photography in my backyard. I become much, much more finicky and picky about my compositions and about the quality of my images when I'm in a backyard setting, when I'm in a controlled environment setting. And the reason for that is practice, because it's here because I can. So if I'm out in the, what do I mean by that? If I'm out in the wild and I'm just walking around and shooting, I will shoot, and I will continue shooting, and I will shoot every bird I see in the face, no matter what. And I do that here. The difference is what I consider an acceptable or good photo in the backyard. That level raises exponentially. So I try to have the best lighting, the best composition, the best pose, the best bird pose, you know, get them posing, um, and the best background, all of that. And if I can have 3 out of 4 of those things, then I'll consider it a pretty decent image. And if I can have all 4 of those things, then I'll consider it a great image. And that's what I'm after back here. And the key to that is patience. In your backyard, you have the ability to have patience, which means that you don't always just have to, oh, look at that cardinal right there, and then take a shot. And then the difference between like this shot and this shot is a huge difference. At first you might think that this shot is good, and technically it is. It's got decent lighting, the focus is nailed, so the bird is nice and sharp, it looks pretty. But then you realize, look at this shot. What if I just wait a second for that bird to move and get out of that cluttered background and then up into this area where there's nothing behind him and the composition looks much better, the background is much better, the lighting is perfect, everything in this shot is much, much better. And that's the key, is waiting until those conditions happen. So in your backyard, again, you have the ability to wait, and that stuff will happen. These birds are here every single day. They're here all day long. I have the ability to wait. So that's where it differs from regular wildlife, in that if I'm out in the wild and I see the same cardinal, I'll be like, wow, there's a cardinal, I'm so excited, you know, and I'll shoot it, and it like might be in a messy background with a lot of branches or a lot of twigs, or the lighting might not be so great, you know, and it's like, oh, bummer, and I can't just wait around there because it's out in the middle of wherever. But here in your backyard, you have that ability, so keep that in mind. Sounds like the hawk's gone. I'm gonna move over there to my other favorite spot. Let's go. Man, that sun really came out all of a sudden. It is super bright. I had to put an ND filter on. All right, so let's talk a little more about the whole composition thing and the whole landscaping to your advantage for the photography. So being able to put up things where you want and in anticipation of getting the best out of your photography, like being able to place the bird feeders close enough to, like in my case, to the deck to where I can sit here and still zoom in on them decent, but not be too close to disturb them. And in terms of like having this chair here, how I have my cherry tree. So studying the habits of the birds, I discovered that they really like this cherry tree. A lot of them, what they will do is they will go to the bird feeder and they will grab their food and then take it to the tree, or they will use the tree to scout the bird feeder and kind of see what's going on before they fly over there, and then they'll fly back to the tree. So for example, if I wanted a shot of a tufted titmouse, which I do, it's been kind of a problem bird for me in terms of being able to get a really good shot because they're so timid and finicky with where they go, then I know by watching them that he's gonna fly to the tree first, and then he's going to go to the birdhouse and he's going to grab one single piece of seed and then fly back and then take it to the tree and open it up and eat it. And they do that one by one, so that's how they eat. They don't just sit there usually and pick it out. So I put the right kind of seeds there that they like, and I watched them and I wait for them to show up. When I see them at the bird feeder, then I get ready, and then what I do is I pre-focus on the tree and the area of the tree that I want and hope that they go back there. So the other biggest thing about this whole thing is patience and the ability to accept that you don't have to take every single shot, or that it's okay to miss a shot. Like, I know that he's going to be at the birdhouse, but I'm not going to shoot him at the birdhouse because I want a more natural looking image. So I'm going to wait for him to go to the tree and then open up his seed and then eat it there. And then while he's doing that, hopefully I'll be able to get a good shot. And keeping in mind the other criteria, I want good lighting, I want a non-messy background, I want a cool composition, good pose, all of that stuff I want. So if I don't get what I want, if I don't get all those conditions, that's okay. I'm just going to wait until it happens because they're here, they're not going anywhere, and I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. So day in, day out, I'm gonna wait if that's what it takes. It's taken me a couple of weeks just to get even this much of a shot, and that's still not the best shot that I really want. You know, that's not really my super keeper. That's just my placeholder until I get to the next keeper and wait for those birds to hit those conditions. So it's really important to not only watch your placement of your things and of yourself, but it's also really important to wait for the right conditions and everything to happen just right, because it will. That's the thing that separates backyard birding from regular wildlife birding or regular wildlife shooting, is the controlled environment. It will happen. They will, in my case, they will get on that nice branch in the nice light with a nice composition, and all I have to do is be here and be ready and set myself up to be in the right position at the right time and everything, and just wait until everything lines up. So in regard to being ready, this goes along with any type of wildlife photography or photography in general, is be ready with your camera, have your camera settings in the right settings that you need. And I'm not going to go over this too much because, like I said, I've already done those videos, but it's important to have your settings, to know your settings, and be ready. You know, I'm either shooting in manual or shutter priority. I'm shooting with a shutter speed that's at least as fast as my focal length, so I'm shooting at 400, so I'm shooting at least 400th of a second, usually faster for these small, fast, flappy little birds because they move quick. So I'm usually shooting something faster. You want to make sure you're all set up. Automatic ISO for me because it helps me, one less thing I have to deal with. You know, that kind of stuff. It's really important to really have everything ready. And on that note, again, pre-focusing is really important too. So if I know that I'm going to be shooting this tree, I'm going to pre-focus to the areas that I want. That way, if a bird lands there, my lens won't have as hard of a time focusing when I tell it to focus. Back button focusing is really good too. If you don't know about back button focusing, I've mentioned it in my other videos. I've done an entire video about it. You can check that out right up here. That will definitely help your wildlife and just your photography in general. Back button focusing is lifesaver for so many reasons.
watch the video. It'll help you out. So if I know that I'm going to be shooting this bird feeder or this tree here, I'm going to pre-focus in that area already. That way when I grab the lens, it's pre-focused. Yeah, you're still going to need to focus, but it won't have to hunt so far if it was at infinity or if it was focused too close or whatever. It's going to be in that general area. You're going to be able to nail focus much quicker. So another thing about the whole setup and the landscaping and all of that, and I understand that you may not have this option depending on your backyard or whatever. You know, all the circumstances are different, but personally, when I'm shooting in any backyard or in any controlled environment at all, not even just a backyard, but if I'm at a nature center or whatever, anywhere there's potential for bird feeders, I would rather not photograph the birds at the bird feeder. I would rather wait until they're in the trees next to it, or in some cases you can also set up, like if you can't plant an entire tree or a plant or something like that, or a natural looking thing, you could possibly set up like a branch. So find a fallen branch or make something, you know, out of wood or something that looks a little more natural and set it up near the bird feeder but not right at it. That way the birds have something to perch on and fly to before and after they deal with the food at the bird feeder. That's going to help. Just having like a branch like that or something a little more natural looking, or a plant or a tree, is going to help the birds because they don't always like to go straight to the bird feeder. They like to scout it out. They like to wait. Sometimes there's a lot of birds that wait their turn or they don't want to deal with whatever. They like to have options close to the bird feeder, and if you can make those look a little more natural, that's a great place to wait for them and stalk them and shoot them. So in my case, like I have these big elephant ear leaves here, and a lot of the birds like to sit on those leaves and wait around in there and hide in there and wait for other birds or whatever. They really like them. So I have that option there, and photographing a bird on those leaves looks a lot cooler and a lot more natural than photographing the bird on the birdhouse or the black metal wire or whatever. It just looks a little less man-made, and that's totally subjective. You know, that's my opinion. That's just how I prefer to shoot things. I really like capturing them in a little more natural environment, even if it's a seemingly natural environment, because again, this is a curated backyard, but still having them in the trees I like better than photographing them on the feeders. The only time I'm personally going to photograph them on a feeder is for identification purposes, or if it's a migratory species and I don't know if I'm going to see them again, or you know, stuff like that. Then I'll definitely use the feeders to my advantage then. But otherwise, having that patience to know that you can wait and that you can miss a shot and that it's okay if you don't get them on the feeder, because if you have the other options around you, like the cherry tree here for me, and the elephant ears leaves and all that stuff and the bushes, then that's where you're going to focus on. But on that note, pay attention to, again, if you're in this for photography and you want the best images possible, then it's going to definitely behoove you to be more picky about the level of quality of your image. And what I mean by that, like I'll use my cherry tree for an example again, is that the higher branches up there on the top there's a lot of branches. They're really cluttered. When there's leaves on them, there's not too many leaves on that one because it's not doing too well. But, you know, like these normal deciduous trees, there's a lot of leaves up there. So I want to wait until the birds get to these lower branches where there's a clean background, there's no clutter, and there's no extra branches. There's kind of grass from the neighbor's yard in the background, so that's going to make a nice soft green background with no clutter. It's going to look really pretty when it's out of focus. There's not going to be any weird shade on the bird's face, or you know, branches cutting their eyes or anything like that. It's not going to be distracting. It's going to be nice and clean. Same with these bushes. If you could get the birds on top of the bushes, then with a nice clean background and watch your angles and pay attention, then that's going to make for a much better image. And one thing that you can do to help that is pruning your trees a little bit, like maybe prune the bottom branches, you know, so that there's a couple of areas that are free, that are distraction free, that'll help you get the better photos. So I'm going to wrap it up here. If you guys have any questions about anything that I went over or didn't go over concerning my tips or any of that for the backyard birding, leave those in the comments below and you know I'll answer them. Also, if you have any tips yourself that you think I missed or that you think would really help the community out, leave those down below too, because helping everybody out is what we're all here for. So if you like this stuff and you want to see more, definitely make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I've got new videos every week. Hit that like button if this video helped you out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.